Hey everyone, I'm Fluffy. I've been playing Destiny 2 for a while now, and I've always wanted to do something really cool. And so, today I set out to solo flawless Spire of the Watcher. Maybe just to say I did the newest dungeon, by myself, or for that sweet, sweet emblem. Either way, here we are, and welcome to my journey for my first ever solo flawless dungeon. I'm excited for this, and welcome. Now, here's the thing about this first part, is it's really not that difficult. You start by killing the goblin, begin the encounter, kill a conduit minotaur, and then you kind of just play connect the dots. It's the theme for a majority of this dungeon, right? In and out, bob and weave, every once in a while shoot a cyclops with, say, a linear fusion rifle. For the most part, this didn't take a whole lot of practice. It was more just doing it and remembering the patterns. And after you finally end by connecting all four, you fall down Rasputin's poop chute. Just be a little bit careful not to do this. And after not too much time, we'll find ourselves over at the first jumping puzzle. Really the only one? But one thing I'm really bad at is jumping puzzles. But we find ourselves here anyway. I cleared every Hydra, Wyvern, and Hobgoblin. Wait, there's no Wyverns here. What are they called? Harpies! There we go. Anyway, paranoia was definitely getting to me after so many runs, so you know what? I just decided that, hey, we should clear every single ad before we move on, or at least a large majority of them, and eventually it got rhythmic. I got used to the pattern, so I just did it every time anyway. You know, this poor little Hydra up here, every single time ate the super, period. Either way, that's what I was used to. Later, and by a few days later after my successful run, I just learned how to do this. You know, shatter skating would have made everything a whole lot easier, but I guess my priorities are out of order. Either way, at the end of the day, it worked out because I still did it. On to the next part. And now that the jumping puzzle is out of the way, you'll see me equip Stompies and teach you exactly how not to do the beginning of the first encounter. Yeah, that one felt great. Regardless, this encounter plays out the exact same way as the first one. Kill a Minotaur, grab the buff, connect the yellow wires. That's really all that sums it up. This encounter just isn't difficult, right? It all comes down to memorization. Know the enemy spawns, know where the Hydras are going to come from, know where the Minotaurs spawn to begin with in case you lose the buff, and just know where the dots are, right? One thing that is really helpful, though, is speed, right? The faster you go, the less you have to deal with. The Vex by themselves take a while to spawn in, so it was really helpful to just not deal with ads, right? Going fast is really what worked well. The only place I really slowed down was right here when I just stopped to kill another Minotaur, right? And with that, just try to keep in mind that, well, you can go fast, there are jumps you can miss, especially if you're a hunter. Some of these were pretty darn close. But that wraps up our first encounter. Alright, and now we're finally here to the Harpy boss of Spire of the Watcher. This is actually the second encounter, but I really consider it the first since the actual first one goes by so fast. There's really no difference here, it's just connect the yellow wires to the 4 different paths. Every time you do so, there's going to be about 4 harpies that shoot lasers that spawn. The real big thing about this encounter is them. You really just want to keep them under control, which is why I switched over to a Tarnished Metal with Volt Shot. I found it was really good at that, and shooting Achelos' eyes, since it only took me about 2 shots per eye unless I missed, but you'll see that later. I was less accurate. Regardless, this boss fight took me about 6 damage phases on average for most of my runs. Yeah, it's not as good as like a God Roll Cataclysmic with a font of my elemental time dilation. For Hunters specifically, I could be using like Nighthawk 2 for the damage phases. But overall, this one eventually just became very rhythmic and one that just doesn't take very long. So I'll just leave the rest of me getting to the damage phase up here, just so you guys can see how I tackled it. It was just consistency and repetition for me, right? That's a really big one on this boss, right? Just know how to do the thing right, and don't mess it up. And eventually you'll get him, right? No matter how much ammo or anything else that you might find you're lacking, eventually you'll get there. It's not like a raid where you've got, what, 4 damage phases? So just keep that in mind. Big one are those little buggers right over there, the harpies. So, with all of that in mind, feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of getting to the damage phase, and at least the first damage phase. After that, we'll probably go into part 4. See y'all then. Alright, and so that was the Akalos fight. Overall, not too difficult. It's just know how to do the thing and do the thing right and don't mess it up. But I did want to share this real quick. This was a failed run where I had my super bounce off of him and my Wither Horde shot went through him. I was relatively frustrated to say the least. But here we are. Time to hit the last and final part. And now all that's left is to descend to the core of the Spire. You do this by shooting 5 red wires in quick succession as part of the new mechanic that's introduced at the very end of the dungeon, which I thought was pretty neat for the most part. Again, it rewards you for just memorization and placement of all of the little nodes, but for the most part, it's really not any more difficult. It sometimes can be in the last room, but I'll go ahead and get into that in a second. As for the fans, definitely try to take the safe way down, as I do have a pretty funny death I'll probably put up here in just a second. If you take the crevices, you won't get killed by them. If you just go for it, well, it'll be a little less consistent. Regardless, that's pretty much all Descending the Spire was. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. It just added the red wires and teaches you about them right before the final boss. See you guys at the bottom. Alright, and there he is. At the core of the Spire lies Percy's primordial ruin. One thing I do have to say about this encounter is this is the hard one. Percy's, above basically anything else in this dungeon, caused the most resets. And I do have to say that the boss is actually a really fun design, and I do really love this boss. Even if it's kind of just a lazy wyvern, but hey, it kind of fits the Vex. Now, my first strategy here, which is really important to kind of keep in mind, is that this back room, while you don't have the first 5 red nodes connected, nothing spawns in it. Which is like a huge island of reprieve. And boy, I took advantage of it. Almost every damage phase, I just kind of sat there and like took a deep breath, because I was like, alright, gotta get to the next one, keep going, right? Now, after you kill the 2 initial Hydras, that'll start spawning the Minotaurs. After you kill a Minotaur and grab the buff, you have to deal with the Supplicants and then shoot all 5 red wires. This causes the main big door to open up, which spawns adds in the other room. Also, there's yellow wires to connect from the other room to this room. There are 4 of them. Every single time you open up the big door, 2 of the 4 will randomly activate. It's your job, or my job in this case, to connect these wires not necessarily as quickly, but as safely as possible. The reason I say safely is because those guys right there, the Supplicants, I have it convinced in my mind that if you are thinking about anything other than Destiny 2, or even just those Supplicants, they're just gonna kill you. Those are what caused more deaths than basically anything else, and goodness, that was unbelievably frustrating. Now, the strategy that I employed for this one is just to always keep track of where the harpies are, because you really don't want to be by them. It gets really sketchy if you're not paying attention, and the last thing you hear is their little ringing and chiming. Let me tell you, that is an emotionally damaging noise after you've heard it enough. Now, the cool part about this boss is that you can actually get to damage really fast and pretty repeatedly, unless you're playing a Warlock, in which case you just kill him, but hey, we're not doing that today. I wish I was using Starfire Protocol in the back of my head. But anyway, as for some thoughts on Percy's, love the fight. Supplicants are absolutely brutal, and if you think about anything other than them for 5 seconds, they're just gonna find you. The boss chasing you around, dealing a ton of damage, is always just a thrill, I guess, to say. You know, it's like, where's the boss? Where are the Supplicants? You know, where are the Goblins? Where are the Minotaurs? You know, you have a lot to juggle in this room, and it actually caught me pretty off guard, especially since most content in Destiny doesn't have you care that much about a whole lot of things. But, for the most part, that's Percy's, it's just juggle a bunch of stuff that'll kill you real quick, connect the wires, shoot the red wires pretty quick, and after not too long, you'll go ahead and get into damage. And on the subject of damage, the moment you connect the next wire, make sure he is in the room, and you are outside of the room. That's a really big, important one. Now, it's important that you either have the buff for long enough, or can go get it quickly from another Minotaur, as you have to shoot all of the red wires again. This time it shuts the door, locks him in there, and turns his shield off. This is where the damage phase starts. Now, I was using Witherhoard, and I swapped over from my Fire and Forget to a Bump in the Night, which is notably a pretty good choke clip rocket launcher. Hit him with the Witherhoard, hit him with the super, and just fire off rockets, because let's be real, I'm probably not going to hit the crit spot with Fire and Forget anyway. Now, keep in mind that this fight is also a test of endurance. One really big thing is if you look at the damage I'm doing, it's not a whole lot. Right around 8 damage phases I think this one took me. Yeah, it could probably be better, but hey, after long enough, I finally did it, and that's, to me, at the end of the day, what mattered. I'll see you guys as soon as Perseus falls. And with that, that was Solo Flawless Spire of the Watcher. And my journey through it, while long and arduous and not perfect by any means, it was my first Solo Flawless. And to me, that was a big deal. Thank you all for watching. And after everything was said and done, I really want to thank anyone who was able to sit through it to the end. I do really appreciate it. I'd love to start making content here on YouTube. It sounds like a whole lot of fun, and if you enjoyed it, I really enjoyed it. So if you want to hit that like and subscribe button, that would mean a whole lot to me. Thank you all, and you all have a wonderful day, night, evening, and see you guys next time.